Hello and welcome to the lesson number 6. We already learned all the basics of Python. Now we want to just learn the last thing as basic. So we're gonna learn functions. What are functions? Let's say that you have a lot of code and you want to just separate it. You want to just let's say that you want to separate the code that is going to count from 1 to 10 and separate the code that is going to print high 10 times, for example. So we have two codes. One is going to print from 1 to 10, and the other is going just to print high 10 times. So to do it, to separate the codes, you're gonna use functions. And let's start with a function that is going to print from 1 to 10. Let's define it. Define, which is def, and then you write the function name 1 to 10. So we're just writing the name of the function, and it's pretty good to give it a proper name. So here we're saying 1 to 10, and then you need to open the parentheses and close it, and semicolon. And just as the for loops and the conditions and the while loops, we have a tab here. And here inside this function, you write the code. Let's start with a test. Okay? And let's just run it. Let me go to the directory, lesson 6, CD lesson 6. All right? And let's execute it. Ouch, there is nothing here. And that because functions doesn't get executed unless you call it. So let's call it. To call it, you just write the name of the function followed by the parentheses. Let's try it again and run it. Tests. We got it. So now we have a code inside a function, and it's not going to run until we just call it. So the function is not going to run until we call it, and that's good. Now let's just write the code that is going to write from 1 to 10. So we can use while loop or for loop. Let's just use a for loop. It's better in this case. For I in range from 1 to 11, and that is going just to print from 1 to 10. Print I. As you see here, there are two tabs, and that's because we are inside the function and inside the for loop. Let's go and run it. As you see, we have a running code that is just executing our function, and it's counting from 1 to 10. Now let's say that we want to just create the second function, which is just printing high 10 times. So let's define it. Define, and then printing high. I'm just giving it a name, printing high. Okay, this is just a name, and semicolon, and here we are just going to print high 10 times. Let's use for in range 10, because it's gonna start from 0, and that means it's gonna just print it 10 times. We want to print high. So this function is going to print for us high 10 times. Let's call it, because without calling it, it's not gonna work. If we go here and call it printing high, guess what's going to happen? The first thing is going to be executed is the function 1 to 10. That means it's gonna just count from 1 to 10, and then it's gonna just print high 10 times. If we run it, it's printing from 1 to 10 and then printing high 10 times. What if we put this code before this code? So printing high and then counting from 1 to 10. This is not the way that it's working. If you are just thinking that it's gonna print high 10 times and then count from 1 to 10, that's not going to happen. You see, it's always printing from 1 to 10 and then printing high 10 times. And that because it's not executing the functions until we call it. That means if you want to just print high first, you gotta just move this here. So printing high 10 times and then printing 1 to 10. Let's try it. You see? It's working now. If you disable this or comment it and run it, only this is going to work. So this is it. This is how functions work. Let's get another detail. Let's start from scratch and remove all of this. And let's make a function and call it print name. And we do print and David. If we call it, it's gonna just print David. All right. Now let's say that we want to just print another name, not David, just another name. So what we can do is get in a parameter, send in a parameter, let's say name here. And once we put a parameter here, we need to send it here too. So, and we just put it here. So let's explain it. We are sending a variable called name to the print name. And it's getting it from here and executing it here. This name, we can change it with any name, David for example, or we can put name equals David and put name here. Both will work, but let's start with David. Or just Ali. Let's change a bit. So now we're sending Ali. The function is getting Ali and executing Ali here. If we just test it, cool, it's working. And that means it's gonna work whenever we call it. David, I don't know, like any name, please. Elon, mask, even if it's not a name. All right, let's execute it. Ali, David, Elon, mask. It's just printing all of those just by calling the function. So if we have a lot of code here, we can execute it so many times with many variables just by calling the function. That means if we do another function, let me just explain another example. Let's say that we have another function that is calculating, and here we give it x and y, and here we say print x plus y, and then let's call it and give it an x of 1 and a y of 10. If we go and execute it, it's given 11. We can do whatever here. And execute it, 11, 6, 16. So with one code, we are just using a lot of variables for one code. And that's the purpose of the functions. You just write less code and call it with many variables. And that's why we use functions. This is the lesson number 6. See you in the next lesson.